All right, welcome back in, folks. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. Today I have a very special guest. It is Jesse over from Last Second Sports, and of course, one of my hosts, co-hosts, however you want to call it, for the NFC West Roundtable every single Tuesday night. You've probably seen him many times before, so really excited to bring him on as a guest to cover this week and be our 49ers expert for the Rams and 49ers game. Before we get into that, just want to let you guys know that today's video is brought to you by Prize Picks. You can get $50 on your first $5 lineup, whether you win or you lose, using my code JKBogan. That's JKBogan when you sign up today using Prize Picks, and you will get, on your first $5 lineup, you will get $50 added to your account regardless of the result. In addition to that, the rest of the month, we have 2 more weeks of Caleb Williams gimmies, a 0.5 yards passing gimme you're going to want to get into. There's only 2 more weeks. Once it's over, it is over. So take advantage of that deal now. Go sign up using my code JKBogan and get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, you guys have seen Jesse from Roundtable Sports, NFC West Roundtable, every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern time with me, 6 p.m. Rams time for you. Well, I just thought it would make sense. The Rams play the 49ers, and it's not, the game we were hoping for, obviously, where you have 2 A teams just battling it out for supremacy in the NFC West. But this is the next best thing. And I wanted to get on my guy, Jesse, from Last Second Sports, to come on here, be our resident expert for the 49ers, and give it to us straight. So before we do that, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, check out Jesse's channel. All of that is in the description below. And let's dive into it, because Jesse, I mean, you know how I feel about you. You're one of my really good friends in this industry, but more importantly, well, that's the most important thing. But I wanted to give you a shout out because I feel like the way you do things, your process, just your analysis, it's all very objective, ball. And so I was super stoked to be able to see this on the schedule. I texted you immediately. I was like, let's do this thing. And you were like, absolutely. So here we are, man. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you, man. I really appreciate it. And you and I have really kind of built this relationship through the Roundtable Sports. And it's tough. I mean, the content thing can be tough. And I'll say this, I pride myself in being objective. Trust me, I am a huge 49er fan. I have been since I'm 6. But there is a duty to be objective when talking about even your favorite team. And a lot of times my own fan base thinks that comes off as negative because I don't just bend the knee to everything that they do and act like they're the greatest thing since sliced bread and love everything. But I do notice, and this always makes me feel good, when I go on other teams' channels, other teams' content creators, they always love me in the chat. Because they're like, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about, and he's so objective, and he's not just a homer. So that makes me feel good. It is nice to go on other teams' channels and be like, all right, at least they rock with me a little bit.
Of course, man. You definitely have a lot of fans on my channel. I can tell you that. I mean, I know you cover the 49ers and the 49ers and Rams, regardless of what anyone says. I think that's the biggest rivalry in the NFC West. And, recency bias, people would lean probably Seattle and San Francisco, but this goes back beyond the 90s. And so I think that's kind of the reality of it is. And then a lot of people also forget that, Seattle was in the AFC, Arizona wasn't, so I mean, that's kind of where we're at. But a lot of people are a fan of you. And a big reason is because the personality is there, but also the knowledge is there. Looking at the defense, though, for the 49ers this year, I know you guys are banged up. A little bit, right? Hufanga banged up, and obviously, what's his face? The Dre Greenlaw, he got hurt in the Super Bowl. But what are your thoughts, I guess, going into this game? The Rams haven't been able to run the ball at all. They tried against the Lions. They had some success early on. Then, the injuries happened, weren't able to. Then Arizona, surprisingly, weren't able to run the football. You had highlighted on the show that we do together that this was kind of the issue for the 49ers. Is would they be able to stop the run? Through 2 weeks, would you say they've done a good job? And going into this game, do you think they can stop Kyren Williams and Blake Corum?
Man, so week 1 was really encouraging. I said to myself, man, this is the best matchup you can get for trying to figure out if the 49ers can actually stop the run. Because last year, you look at the stats from a pure stat standpoint, the San Francisco 49ers were excellent against the run. But the reality of the situation is they played from ahead so much that teams weren't able to stick with it. And then when they were in those tight games, teams were low-key able to dominate in the running game against the 49ers. Now, it didn't happen often, but when it happened, it was very, very clear. So then you fast forward to this year, you've got no Dre Greenlaw up the middle. You've got no Hufanga, who actually might be returning this week. And those two guys are huge for this run defense. And Fred Warner is the best linebacker in the game, but he's a different type of linebacker. He plays with a lot of energy. He's great in coverage, but I don't think he's the thumper or the gap filler that Dre Greenlaw is. And that's why those two really marry together so well. And then they also lost an underrated player, maybe to a lot of fans around the league, in Eric Armstead. Probably the best run defender that they had, all in all, on the defensive line. He's now gone. So they go and make these wholesale changes, and you wonder, can they stop the run? Well, week 1 comes and goes, and it's like, wow, Breece Hall, an upgraded offensive line for the Jets, they did a hell of a job in that game. Maybe they can. But something told me we should wait one more week and just see it out, because now you're about to play Aaron Jones. You're about to play a completely different run scheme. What does it look like this week? Well, oddly enough, against Aaron Jones, it actually looked pretty good, but against Ty Chandler, not so much. And the Vikings were able to gash them in the run game. It didn't look good at all. At times, it just kept drives going and going and going, and it set the Vikings up for great third down situations. And then not only that, they couldn't contain Sam Darnold when he wanted to run either. So here we go into week 3. The question still remains, can they stop the run? And I think the Rams, being as hurt as they are, their path to victory is to run the ball, control the clock. Listen, Stafford is amazing. The best quarterback in the NFC. That's the way that I feel about him. But he doesn't have his weapons. He's been a little bit beat up. I know the offensive line should be a little bit healthier, but the key is to run the ball. And they've got 2 good running backs that can certainly get it done. And I question, can the 49ers stop the run? Because if they can't in this game, then the game all of a sudden can become close. And I don't want to see that as a 49ers fan.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder. They got Blake Corum going a little bit at the end of the game against the Cardinals. Sean McVey and his show made it sound like they're really trying to get him involved moving forward. Does Blake Corum help the run game at all? I think he does. I think Kyren does as well. We'll see. In addition to that, the passing attack of the Rams, we know Sam Darnold had it was a great throw, don't get me wrong, 97 yards or whatever for Justin Jefferson, but it was a little fluky because you just don't have plays like that. If we're being honest and objective here, obviously you guys in the comment section can say how much you hate the 49ers, but how common is it to give up a 97-yard play? Not very common. So, looking at that, one could say Sam Darnold had his way with the secondary if they just looked at that one play. But what say you? Because Aaron Rodgers did not look great week 1. Now, neither did Kirk Cousins, both of which coming off a torn Achilles, only one of which is ever talked about coming off a torn Achilles, and Kirk Cousins, because that's all Rodgers ever talked about for. But, you saw Kirk Cousins struggle in week 1. You saw Rodgers. The Achilles, was it maybe that? Who knows? Then week 2, Sam Darnold didn't look terrible. And this is a team that, we talked about on our show. Like, the 49ers know him. So I actually expected a little bit better. But where are you on this pass defense of the Niners?
I feel decent about the pass defense, at least the back end. It sounds so weird to say this, but the 49ers have been built around this super strong defensive line. That's what everybody, when they look at the 49ers, like, oh my God, the pass rush. the pass rush. And it's been that way since 2019. I don't know. I don't know what this pass rush is. I mean, they're not getting consistent pressure, especially with four. I almost feel like there's got to be a little bit of a scheme switch up. And that was the hope when Staley came in. It was like he was bringing the Fangio style and they would marry it with, what they had done with the Seattle Seahawks cover 3, cover 4, cover 6. And they would show more blitzes and do more stunts. And they kind of have done that, but it's still at the base a wide 9, rush 4, play coverage on the back end. And I trust the secondary for the most part. They're still trying to figure out that second corner. I think Isaac Yiadom, a lot of people really liked him, and he had a fantastic season. I think he's an underrated player, but I think 49er fans overrated his impact. He still is a journeyman who came out and had a very, very good season, but the proof is he's not necessarily that guy. And he got toasted last week. I think he gave up 4 catches. All of them were for first downs on third down. And then Renardo Green, who was drafted in round 2, I would love to see him more, but Kyle Shanahan's not the type of guy to play a bunch of rookies. And so a lot of these guys sit naturally. But overall, Lenore's fantastic. Charvarius Ward's fantastic. I think the safeties are very good. When healthy, we'll see if Hufanga can come back this week. But the pass rush is not what it has been, especially with rushing 4. They need to send a little bit more pressure, simulate some pressures, do more stunts, just get creative. Because rushing 4 there's no creativity to it, and you're just expecting that Bosa and those fellas are going to beat everybody in front of them. And it just isn't happening on a regular basis. So the pass rush, believe it or not, if I were to say pass defense wise, I have more concerns about the pass rush getting home on a regular basis at this point than I do the secondary containing and coverage.
That's interesting because, I mean, obviously a lot of Rams fans would probably assume the opposite, if anything. So that is interesting. And that's why we bring you on here. The Rams really have run predominantly 11 personnel despite all their, miscomings here. And now you just knowing football, and I would assume at some point the Rams are going to figure this thing out and how to kind of right the ship. And they did not place Cooper Kupp on IR today. So that was interesting. So maybe some hope there. But they cannot keep running this 11 personnel grouping. They have to have 2 tight ends. They have to have some help for their young tackles. And obviously this week, not as young because they're getting back Alec Jackson. They have Rob Havenstein. But how do you see the Rams attacking the 49ers defense? Because I think this game, we're going to see kind of like what we see every year. I almost joke about Sean McVey. No matter how good the offense starts out, no matter how good the offense will look at any point in the season, he always goes through a patch where they lose 2 straight or 3 straight. And then he goes back to, just basic football, ground and pound. I mean, stuff that kind of looks almost out of their element to have Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp and Brandon Cooks and all of a sudden be like, yeah, we're just going to pound the rock and we're going to have 13 personnel and things like that. So I guess seeing as he's done that before, how do you think the Rams attack the 49ers? Do you think they're going to stay with 11? Do you think they'll give these wide receivers, plenty of opportunities? Or do you suspect that they will try to make this a close game, play spoiler a little bit, and run the football?
I do think that no matter what personnel they come out in, they're going to try to run the ball. One thing we can say is, no, there's not going to be Cooper Kupp most likely. No, there's not going to be Puka Nacua. But Sean McVay, much like Kyle Shanahan, is not going to bring in receivers that aren't willing blockers. So I think, maybe he wants to run out of that 11 personnel. Maybe he wants to get a nickel corner on the field and feels like that's his better option. Maybe not. I mean, I don't know what he's going to decide to do, but running the ball has to be a priority. Absolutely has to be a priority. Then I think play action, using play action to your favor, that'll help those receivers kind of break free, get one-on-one matchups. The 49ers had a really interesting drive last week. The final drive that the Vikings had, they were on the field with no Justin Jefferson, no Addison, and no what's their tight end's name? I'm drawing a blank. He
Was
was
it
with the
Johnny Munt?
Lions. No. Munt played Hawkinson. Hawkinson's been out for the whole year.
Oh yeah.
So you have no Hawkinson, no Addison, and no Jefferson. And they still were able to drive down the field and get a field goal. And so when I look at Matthew Stafford, I trust him a hell of a lot more than Sam Darnold. And I know that he's going to make some really good decisions and he can make some big time throws if he can stay upright. Well, the best way to keep him upright is use play action to his advantage, run the football, and allow that offensive line to play downhill, give them some confidence in the running game, and then you can go ahead and pass protect. So that's what the Rams should do. I mean, I don't think it's really a surprise. That's what the Rams should do. That's what the 49ers should do as well. They should try to win the game the same way, but it's just whoever can execute it the most. And I think, the one thing that the Rams have that the 49ers don't at this point is two running backs I believe they can trust. The 49ers have one right now. They really have to rely heavy on Mason. They do not trust Patrick Taylor. They do not trust Isaac Guerrero. And that can be a bit of a problem. If you want to run the ball 40 times in a game, the way that we know that Shanahan wants to, doing that with one back's not going to happen. However, if the Rams want to run the ball 40 times, they can because they have two running backs that can get it done. So I think that would be my game plan. If I can keep Stafford around 22, 23 throws, even though he's the better quarterback, that would be ideal. Just make him timely, make him big plays, pick up your third downs, but don't put the ball in harm's way for no reason, and don't put him in a situation where he's just going to take hit after hit after hit, run the hell out of the ball, tire everybody out. And I would say this too, don't run to the edges a ton. Force it up the middle. Force the 49ers to play defense up the middle and show they can stop the run, because the Jets ran sideline to sideline way too much, in my opinion. I think they did the 49ers favors. This last week, that was not the case. They made sure to run up the gut and force those 49er players up the middle to make plays, and they couldn't do it. So that's what I would do if I was the Rams.
Yeah, and maybe it says more about, the usage of Aaron Jones than it does, about how well Ty Chandler played. Because Ty Chandler, almost all his runs were up the middle. And Aaron Jones, they were all now that I think about it, they're all, sideline to sideline. So interesting stuff there. Really good analysis. I know Sean is going to be watching the film from last week for sure. He knows Kevin O'Connell pretty well too. So, they'll definitely be trying to do what the Vikings did. But moving on to the offense here, the 49ers have still plenty of talent. I understand Debo's out. I get that. But they still have plenty of talent. Brandon Ayuk, Juwan Jennings. I love Juwan Jennings. Jacob Cowing. I think obviously George Kittle is going to be a contributor here. Now, I thought the Rams did a nice job against Trey McBride last week. For the most part, they did a good job against Sam Laporta. I think Kittle's a little different than both of those guys, though. Kittle can create things. Like, I'm not convinced yet. As much as I like Sam Laporta, I'm not convinced he can just create things on the fly. But I feel like Kittle has that communication and just that rapport built with Brock Purdy, where when Purdy's moving around, like we talked about in NFC West Roundtable, and he can make plays similar to what Kyler Murray can make and what he did this past Sunday, he and Kittle are going to be on the same page. Kittle operates very similarly to that of Gronkowski with Tom Brady. If he realizes, my quarterback's out and making plays on his own now, now he's going to understand, okay, I don't need to run this same route that's already dead at this point. I need to find a way to get open. And you can see that, just that ability, the maturation of Brock Purdy, just the, improvisational skills. I think you still need to look out for George Kittle. Big fan of Jordan Mason. As you mentioned, he is somebody that is really turning into something in this league. Kyle Juszczyk is always a problem against the Rams. They can throw him out there any way they want. And then you have an offensive line that I think kind of all over the place. It's a mixed bag. Obviously, Trent Williams is a wall. No one's going to debate that. Aaron Banks is all right. Jake Brendel, I would say, is the weak link of the offensive line. You don't like Aaron Banks?
No, Aaron Banks is fine, but Brendel is awful.
My guy Dominic Cooney, He's very
Cooney's
good.
very good.
And
Very, very good.
I'm not really sure what to make of with Colton McKivitz. I think I've seen some good. I've seen some bad. I've seen some ugly. It's a mixed bag, right? It's only to make it fair for the rest of the league, because if they had an elite offensive line like what the Dallas Cowboys had, I mean, who knows? But looking at this offense, Jesse, what are your thoughts? How can they attack a Rams defense that we thought week one was good? We thought week one could tackle. We thought week one was going to play with some heart, and did the exact opposite of all those things in week two.
Yeah, I think, what's interesting about the San Francisco 49ers, when you look at them at their best, other than, I would say, well, before Purdy came, the way they got Jimmy Garoppolo going was run the ball, play action passing. They've been near the bottom of the league now, last year and this year, in play action passing. I think they had, I want to say it was 7% play action last week. That's not what I think of when I think of a Kyle Shanahan offense. But for whatever reason, Brock Purdy is more comfortable kind of standing in shotgun and scanning things.
So is Stafford.
Playing straight. Yeah, it's, so
Weird.
I understand it, but I think the best way to get things going is to run the ball and then play action. Make it easy on them. And it's interesting because this 49ers team is still very talented. But when you look at what has made the 49ers successful, it's yak. It's the yak monsters. Everybody gets out. They get the short passes. They go crazy. You got CMC, you got Debo. Well, Ayuk isn't the biggest yak guy because a lot of his routes are downfield. Kittle, as great as he is showing his age a little bit. He can still be a yak guy. If he gets it in the open field, he'll make some plays. But I don't think he was quite the yak guy that he was early in his career. And so now you look at it and say, all right, well, the 49ers, they're going to have to win in a different way. They're not going to be able to rely on the yak anymore. They're going to have to rely on just making a play downfield, receiver going down, and then starting your play from there. So that's an interesting change. But I think play action is something they have to incorporate more. And the other thing I would do is Brock Purdy is very athletic, extremely underrated as an athlete in his mobility. If you remember Mike Shanahan and the way that he used Jake Plummer with the Denver Broncos, always kept him on the move because Jake Plummer was actually pretty similar. He didn't have the best arm. It was a decent arm, but it wasn't the best. But he was very, very mobile. And so he would constantly move the pocket, give him a high-low read with the option to run. And that worked for a while in Denver. I feel like that's an opportunity for the 49ers with Brock Purdy. You don't have the best offensive line, although I will say they're playing above average right now, which is a bit surprising if I'm just being real. That's not what we expected in the past game. But I wouldn't rely on that week in and week out. Get Brock Purdy to the edges, allow him to use his athleticism, allow him to pick apart a defense with high-low reads. You give him easy reads. He's great at going through his reads anyways, but you give him easier reads and the option to run, I think he can be super dangerous. You don't have to do it all game, but if you can give him 5 to 7 boot actions, 5 or so play action passes, and then mix in the rest of what he's comfortable with, I think keeping it fresh is the way to go. And Brock Purdy did something really interesting last week, Jake. For a guy that likes to get mobile, a guy that will evade a lot of sacks in the pocket and make plays downfield, I have never seen him drop back, hit his back foot, and just stand flat-footed in the pocket as many times as I did last week. I know that scheme is nuts. He said it after the game, that is the toughest scheme that for him to play against, and he gives all credit in the world to Flores. But he was so flummoxed that he was just frozen. He was like, he just didn't even know what he was looking at. And that was the first time that I believe we've seen Brock Purdy look like that. I'm curious to see how he bounces back against the Rams.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way of putting it. I'm sure that didn't make you feel good about playing the Seahawks because of that defense.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't at all. In fact, I'll give you a stat. Kyle Shanahan against who I believe are the 3 best coordinators in the league right now. I'll take McDonald out because he's still early in his career. He was fantastic last year, but let's see it a little bit longer. But Spagnuolo, Jim Schwartz, and Brian Flores. as a head coach, Kyle Shanahan is 1-9 against those guys. He scored more than 23 points just once, and his offenses average 19.9 points a game. For a guy that is as offensive centric as Kyle Shanahan and gets the credit across the league for being this genius, the fact that he cannot rise to the occasion against the best defensive coordinators in the league is a bit concerning.
That's interesting. I did not know that. I think it makes sense, though, when you factor in Brock Purdy, Jimmy Garoppolo as his quarterbacks. As you know, I'm one of the bigger Brock Purdy believers out there. I think he is legitimate. But it makes sense because you don't have like a Tom Brady. You don't have like a Peyton Manning, guys that can read through those different disguises and the different things that you're going to see, the looks that you're going to see from a Flores and especially a Jim Schwartz. So I feel like that has more to do with the quarterback. I mean, I could be wrong, but I do find that interesting though. 1-9. That is, wow. That's a lot.
Yeah, it's not good.
No, it's definitely not. And I mean, Jesse, it's funny. I'm going to bring up something Brandon said on our show because he basically was saying, who could do what Gino's doing based on what he's been dealt with, right, with the offensive line. And it makes you wonder, because I think a lot of people now, they know what Stafford's done. They know that he did it with the Lions. They know he did it without an offensive line, defense, all that. But it seems like lately, it's not really Stafford that people will be on. I think right now people are going to be on Sean McVay. Like, how do you come back from this? And whether it's fair or not, Jesse, isn't really the reality of it. The reality of it is this is week 3. The NFL is not fair. We know that. There have been plenty of teams in the past that should have won Super Bowls that didn't because of the grueling nature of the NFL. And that's the way it is. But fans don't care. They want to see results. Now, we've seen fans on one side of the coin after whatever the hell Chase Daniel said today with that trade. Did you see that?
Dude, what? The F was that, man? That was the worst trade. And what? No.
Like,
it was awful.
Why would the Rams be? Anyway, for those of you who don't know, definitely look it up. But basically, to make a long story short, it was Matthew Stafford and a 3rd-round pick the Rams would give up for Bryce Young.
It was a 3-team trade. Stafford would go to Miami. Miami would give a 2nd-round pick. The Rams would give a 3rd-round pick. Those would go to Carolina, and then Bryce Young would go to. Why would you ever make that trade to bring Bryce Young? No.
No. It was awful. So yeah, just that whole thing. It was just like, are we serious? But I guess really what I'm saying is that I think the fan base is kind of split all over the place. Some would even trade Stafford right now, which I think it's way too soon to do that. Some think that they're going to win the Super Bowl. I would say might be a little delusional because I said they'd win the Super Bowl, but that was before they had a bevy of injuries. To be fair, no one has been ruled out for the year, so that's a plus. There are some that think they're going to make the playoffs, and there are some that just genuinely are asking me, hey, Jake, how should I feel about what's going on? I genuinely don't have a clue what to make of this season. And I think that all of those are fair, especially with the idea of being a fanatic, like thinking you're going to win the Super Bowl regardless of all this stuff. I think it's fair, right? But I think the real thing that I keep seeing is how much is this on Sean McVay if he can't get this stuff done? Because there are quarterbacks, like we're watching what Kevin O'Connell's doing in Minnesota, right? We watched it last year. He won games with Josh Dobbs and, Jaron Hall. And now this year he's 2-0 with Sam Darnold. And I mean, they're not the most injured team, but they have some injuries, right? And they're definitely not the most talented. And they lost their number 1 overall pick that they got in their draft. So I do think it's fair, but I want to ask you and get your thoughts on it. Do you think it's fair to start holding Sean McVay accountable? Because, yeah, he doesn't have the weapons maybe this week, but what we saw last week can't happen again. So I guess for me, I'm not really sure how to feel. I don't want to throw Sean McVay under the bus, but at the same time, I think it's understandable. The way people are coming from is, if Sean McVay is that good, why can Kyle Shanahan do this? But Sean McVay needs a first round pick. Sean McVay needs a first round pick at receiver and, offensive line. And I've heard those things. So I guess, what are your thoughts on all that?
Well, I mean, first of all, if the comparison is to Kyle Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan has the best weapons in football. Kyle Shanahan, out of his own mouth, has said, this is the most talented team in the league multiple times, and they haven't won a Super Bowl. So, it's not like Kyle Shanahan is sitting here on perfection. It's not like Kyle Shanahan, the year 2020, after they won the Super Bowl. How did the 49ers get Bosa? Well, Jimmy Garoppolo got injured, and then they were awful. And so then they got Bosa. Then they went to a Super Bowl, and then a bunch of players got injured, and they were awful again. So injuries do matter. Now, I do agree. What happened last week was absolutely embarrassing. If you have Matthew Stafford at quarterback, I really don't care what else is going on. We've seen him perform under awful circumstances in Detroit. You got to at least show some heart. That was the most surprising thing about that game. It's just like there was nothing. There was no heart. Now, talent-wise, they should have gotten smoked, and they did. But it just seemed like they completely gave up and had no belief that they could really do anything. And it happened quick, very early. That was with Cooper Kupp still in the game. It felt like that. So, yeah, I think there's some accountability there, but I don't know that I would go on this like fire Sean McVay train. I look at the Rams. If Matthew Stafford's willing to play another 2 seasons after this, another 3 seasons, hell, even another 1 season, you take that chance. Because if this season ends up being a down season, now you're going to give him a high draft pick. They're going to go stock the cupboard even more. You're going to give him another round of free agency. And you've still got a very good quarterback and a very good coach. If this team's healthy, they're scary. This game right here, the 49ers should win. But if the 49ers have to play the Rams, and I don't know that the Rams will make the playoffs if they start 0-3, it's probably unlikely. But if the Rams are healthy late in the year and the 49ers have to win that game to get the number 1 seed, I'm not confident that's going to happen. I wouldn't be confident at all, because I think Sean McVay's an excellent coach, and I think Matthew Stafford's the best quarterback in the NFC. So if you give that team some health, I think they're scary for anyone. And if they sneak into the playoffs and that team's healthy, I don't want to play them. I want nothing to do with them. So, no, I wouldn't be writing off McVay at all at any point, or Stafford at this point. It's too early for that.
I agree completely. I just wanted to bring it up because it's something I keep seeing. Definitely am not of that belief at all. Because people bring up 2022 and they're like, well, I've seen coaches do better with less, and Sean McVay folded. And it's like, look, if you want to say Sean McVay is a fantastic offensive mind when he has the weapons, and you would say that there are better offensive minds out there that can do more with less, that's a completely different discussion than whether or not is Sean McVay to be blamed here. Like, I think there are other coaches that maybe go above and beyond what is expected of them, what they have on their roster. I think also Sean McVay has gotten the most out of some of the guys that he's had on the roster. But I think really the common, thing thrown at him is Brock Purdy happened in San Francisco and the Vikings thing. And people always throw out, he got rid of
Trey Lance also happened in San Francisco.
I agree. But they'll always throw out Jared Goff didn't work out. Sean McVay drafted Stetson Bennett. John Wolford, Bryce Perkins, he couldn't do anything with, but then Kevin O'Connell does stuff with these guys. So I've heard it all. I guess really at this point, I think people are expecting too much of a team that has this many injuries early on. You can say, yeah, their offense is almost intact again. I mean, that's great, but no Cooper Kupp, no Puka Nacua, no Tyler Higbee, which is never brought up anymore. No number one corner. No, there's a lot of injuries right now. And the offensive line, I just don't think people understand, which is why I've always said I look at it like this. The offensive line is like a metal chain, right? When you're fully gelled, that's your chain. Well, when you get, you have an injury, the guy on that part of the chain gets replaced with something that is of less quality in the chain. So you might have a chain by the end of the year. And if we're talking 2022, Jesse, it was paper mache. It was the Cheerios chain, tinfoil, you name it. That's how I've always chosen to look at it, because I think it's the best way to describe why. Well, there are 4 strong guys, 4 metal chains. Why isn't the guy all the way to the left playing left tackle? Why is this offensive line so bad when you have 4 really good players? Because the guy on the offense at the end of the offensive line has a paper mache chain. So there's not really much connection there to those 4 steel chains. So yeah, I think, Jesse, looking at everything, I think we just got to wait and see. I think Sean McVay winning a Super Bowl should be enough to question Sean McVay. And I think that there are coaches out there that don't get enough respect about what they do when they don't have everything around them. But let's do a better job of giving those coaches credit instead of discrediting other coaches for being in better situations.
Well, listen, the 49ers lost Trent Williams last year and were 0-3. So, I mean, that goes to show you. And if you want to talk about quarterbacks, I mean, let me go through the history of what Kyle Shanahan has done here real quick. So 2019, you literally do not scout Patrick Mahomes at all. Not that you didn't pick him, right? Because it's not like everybody across the league thought he was a can't miss prospect. Now, the Chiefs were smart enough to trade up for him, but the 49ers didn't even scout him. You know why? Because their plan was to go get Kirk Cousins. Well, they didn't even go through with that plan. They went and got Jimmy Garoppolo before the end of the season, gave him the highest paid contract in NFL history. After just 5 games, he tears his ACL. Then they go to the Super Bowl. They try to replace him after the 2020 season by trading 3 first-round picks and a third-round pick to move all the way up to number 3, not even number 1 or number 2, not even for a specific player, but we'll figure it out once we get to 3. Then they draft Trey Lance. They play him for 4 starts, move on from him. Jimmy Garoppolo, which, by the way, has been sitting on the back burner. They thought he was worth 2 second-round picks, so they kept him around, even though they were trying to move on from him. The whole awkward situation of Trey Lance is trying to take over the team, but Jimmy Garoppolo's practicing on the side and watching practice. Then they sign him to a team-friendly deal. He comes in for an injured Trey Lance. He goes down. Brock Purdy comes in. And let's not forget that Kyle Shanahan has traded up not only for Trey Lance, which he didn't even give a chance to or try to develop really, but he also traded up for CJ Beathard in round 3, who was probably an undrafted prospect because, he fit his scheme or what have you. Kyle Shanahan's quarterback record is not the best. He got lucky with Brock Purdy, who was extremely developed. He wasn't even the reason that he was drafted. It was, I think it was like Kubiak and someone else said to draft this kid. They drafted him with the last pick. I don't know, man. Kyle, as a quarterback whisperer, he is not that either. He's a fantastic coach. I think he's a better offensive mind than McVay, but I think McVay as a head coach, what it takes to be a leader, I think he's better.
That was well said. I kind of agree with everything you said, including the offensive mind. I mean, I definitely kind of feel like Shanahan's the better offensive mind. Offensive play caller at least. But I think, just the intangibles that you need to lead men. I feel like Sean McVay has that, and there are not many guys in the league that do. So that's kind of where I'm at. Looking at this game, wrapping it up, Jesse, because I really appreciate you coming on. And and then people, if you're watching this, if you haven't already seen Jesse and I on his channel, well, then you can go and check that out after this. But it's always, always have to throw that in there. But week 3, 4:25 Eastern time, San Francisco heads to SoFi Stadium to take on the Rams. It is the Rams' home debut of the year, and they are probably glad to be back home after the 2 road games. But is it going to matter, Jesse? Talk to me.
Well, they're at home, but we know that the 49er fans, I mean, that's too close to San Francisco and Santa Clara, and the 49er fans travel tough. I mean, I'm coming all the way from Florida to watch the game. A little disappointed that we're getting the JV teams for both these guys, but it's a divisional game and it's an important one. You got 2 teams coming off of a loss. I think 2 teams that are going to be desperate and play the best football that they can and try to do everything they can to win this game. And I would expect that there's probably as many 49er fans, if not more, at SoFi. So, yes, it's a home game as far as where they're playing the game, but it's not going to be a home game as far as the fan base goes necessarily. That being said, I think that the Rams are super desperate. I think they're also very embarrassed. They are getting at least some protection back when it comes to the offensive line, which is a positive thing. And I think there still is a path to win this game. I just don't think that path is very wide. I think it's a very narrow path. They're going to have to be almost perfect in running the ball. They cannot turn the ball over. You cannot have a single turnover if you want to win this game. And you're going to have to execute all game long. And you're also going to have to put together long drives. I don't think that you have the weapons at this point to where you're just going to start torching the 49ers secondary and getting deep passes and big chunk plays. It's going to have to be methodical, ball control. That's the way to win this game for the Rams. So the path is there. I just think that the 49ers have more of a path. I think Brock Purdy going against this defense, nothing against the defense. I actually thought that the defense, if healthy, could be better than last year, and that was a team with Aaron Donald and Ernest Jones. That being said, there are some injuries there, and the 49ers offensive line has done a pretty good job, as I said, in pass protection. And their scheme is not near as crazy as what Minnesota was throwing at the 49ers. So I think it's a little bit of a relaxed game for Brock Purdy. I think he can get back to doing what he does well, which is have some time in the pocket, go through his progressions, run when he wants to, get mobile. And I think that's enough for the 49ers to get this done. I could see a scenario where it's very, very tight through 3.5 quarters, and then the talent just eventually pulls away. So I'll go 27-17 San Francisco.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same belief. I love giving the Rams wins in my predictions, but I just can't in good faith give them a win this week. It's tough. It sucks. I hate injuries. Trust me, I do. But the reality is the 49ers are more talented in their current state right now than the Rams are. And it's arguable when they're fully healthy that the 49ers are still more talented. So it's a tough game. I thought the Rams, this is the disappointing thing, Jesse, is I thought week 2 last year, the Rams started closing the gap a little bit, getting closer and closer, despite the injuries that they were dealing with then. Not anywhere near as bad as now. Not having either Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua, I can see an upset. I can. I'm just not going to predict it, is what I'm saying. Just because I can see something occurring. I can see Jordan Whittington going out and being Puka Nacua this Sunday. I'm not even kidding you. But just because I can see that doesn't mean I'm going to go bet, the farm on him going over 100 yards and having 2 touchdowns, right? I'm just not going to do that. So I do see a possibility. I do see a pathway to an upset. And if they did that, they got Chicago and Green Bay upcoming. I think those are winnable games. We don't know the state Jordan Love is going to be in. He's going to be rusty, I can tell you that, take him out of the offense and putting him back in week 5. And, I mean, Chicago's defense is disgusting, but so is Caleb Williams, not in a good way. So I think this is a real opportunity here for the Rams to get back on the high side. You could win 2 straight after that. You go in the bye and all of a sudden you've snuck in a 3-2 record. Everyone looks like a damn fool saying that they need to trade the farm and they need to cancel the season. With that said, though, I don't think it's the end of the year. I do think they go 0-3. I'm taking the 49ers 23-13. I think it'll be kind of an uglier game, but I think it's almost like one of those games we're going to look up at the clock and be like, it's already the 4th quarter. And there's going to be a lot of running the football. I think the 49ers plan on trying to run it. I think they're going to try and get Brock Purdy going with the play action, despite the fact they don't do it as much. And I think the Rams will have some more success this week than they've had the last 2 weeks in the run game. I just think it, to your point, comes down to that. If the Rams' young defense forces a turnover on Brock Purdy, I do think the Rams steal this game. I do. But I'm not expecting that. I think Purdy is going to play mistake-free football, and I think it'll just make it too hard. The Rams aren't going to get that extra possession, and so I think that'll, eventually end in a 23-13 game.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair.
Yep. So that's going to do it. Jesse, really appreciate you being the resident expert of the 49ers for us, and appreciate you guys tuning in. Be sure to follow Jesse on his socials at JNA_LSS. And be sure to follow him. I understand asking you to subscribe to a 49er channel might be considered sacrilegious, but look at this guy. He's a great dude. Just go and just look at it like you are taking food off his table if you don't go and subscribe. There you go. Supports these young, small, medium content creators. We're not ESPN, but we'll get there someday.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you so much for having me on, man. This was a ton of fun, and good luck to your Rams this weekend. Just not too much good luck.
Absolutely. Same to you, man. For those of you who want to support the channel further, you can go ahead and you can actually sign up and become a member on the channel and have access to all different perks. You can see here the join button right below all my videos. You can hit that. You're going to get access. 99 cents a month will get you rookie access. That's going to get you all these loyalty badges and what have you, priority reply to comments. All members will have priority reply to comments. Starter $2.99. That is going to be member shoutouts. Pro Bowl is going to be auto follow back on all social media platforms. You just have to reach out to me and show me that, of course, you are a member for Pro Bowl. All Pro is members only live streams. I will be doing one a month for members only. MVP is priority call-ins. It's going to be hard to get everybody in during the season. Obviously, you will have your first crack at basically calling in to the show. And then last but not least, the Hall of Fame, which is $19.99 a month. And that is an exclusive gaming session with me monthly. So if you want to get a little bit more into the action while also helping out the channel, be sure to sign up for one of the memberships today. Do you love talking about the Rams, the NFL, or just want to be a part of a community? Join my free Discord server today. We're over 800 members. We got 24/7 live chat, a level 3 boosted server, the ability to call into JE Live, playing online games with us on Kick streams, toggleable alerts for when I go live on YouTube or Kick so you don't miss a live stream, and exclusive giveaways. Click the link in the description, the comments section, or the link that comes up in the video to learn more and join today.